Hello, and welcome to Vision Denial and World Watch 2022. My name is Sam, and if those of you who are new here, I have watched every single playoff of 2022. Yes, every single one of them, even that one. Notably, this particular series we were covering the summer of 2022 on our anticipation and preparation for Worlds. And this you have stumbled upon, or you are a regular subscriber and watcher, to the Meet the Teams portion, where I will take a look at every 24 team, their strengths, weaknesses, play styles, notable quirks, interesting things to look ahead, all in the attempts to at least teach some people who don't watch certain regions what to expect from their teams, or from the teams that are going. That said, there are two caveats to really put forward. First caveat: a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about are data-driven. I will put a link down below to the Google Docs of all of the data I have aggregated all in one nice spot. All of the data comes from the LOL fandom, Wikipedia, and from the goal.gg website, both of which have very different focuses to their data points, and both are necessary for these kinds of videos to work. That said, there's a limitation to some of this data because the LPL doesn't send the data as consistently as the other regions, and this is something you'll find with any particular data point for LoL esports globally. The LPL will still be missing some things regarding plates, drakes at 15 minutes, and heralds. A lot of the early game is not there. That and everything relating to vision. Second thing that I have to point out, a lot of the emerging regions, specifically Oceania, Turkey, Brazil, Latin America, and Japan, their teams will have some inflated stats in their favor. That being in mind, when we're looking at their stats, a lot of them will look good, notably the Chiefs and Detonation Focus Me. So some of the stats for every team has to be taken with a grain of salt of either being maybe stronger than expected or weaker than expected by quite a bit, notably because of this kind of inflation of statistics. When you're studying data, this is the kind of adjustments you need to do. That said, team-based data will look skewed. Individual data for each player's less so, because of the kinds of data points that they keep track of. All of that to say is that a lot of the notes that I've taken are using data points that have been collected that you can all enjoy for free down below, or in the various websites that I mentioned, but taking into account a lot of the personal notes that I use in conjunction with this data to show you what to expect with these teams. Without further ado, let's take a look at this video's team. I don't know. This is a pre-recorded message. Let's take a look. Let's meet Isurus, or Isurus Gaming. Isurus is the 7th team to qualify for Worlds, after having defeated Estral Esports in a fantastic rematch grand finals for 5 games. Honestly, worth the watch. Their coach, Ukir, has been part of the Latin American scene since 2015, in the summer of 2015, joining Isurus originally and jumping around 3 different teams before coming back for the 2022 season, and could not look any better. This team is fairly interesting because most emerging region teams are fairly dominant when they come as like a representative, but Isurus is more of a gradual, kind of slow improvement kind of team. And you can tell that from how they were in spring all the way here. Starting off in spring being part of the lower bracket, and now coming into here being a much higher seed going into their playoffs. They show that they will take the time to learn how to beat their enemies. But that usually involves fighting, and primarily fighting. They really look for early skirmishes, especially around Herald and Baron, and it tends to suffer everything else going on. They're very low in plate gold. They're very low in terms of control around drakes. They have not the strongest vision score across the board, but they are high proactivity. And this sometimes can bite them in the butt because they have a fairly good gold differential at 15 minutes, relatively speaking, but their win rate ahead at 15 minutes is not as high as some would want. And given how high paced they are in the early game, their game duration is also not reflective of it. Isurus show a lot of good signs, but a lot of their tendencies towards how they approach fights and vision really hurt them in the long run. Let's meet Isurus' top laner, ADD. Many of them would be familiar with his exploits with Suning before moving to Latin America during the ending parts of the 2021 season. Having jumped onto Isurus for the 2022 season, he's been fairly solid as a very good anchor for the team. Primarily playing weak side and taking in a lot of pressure, his gold per minute or CS per minute looks fairly low compared to his contemporaries, and his KDA reflect how often he absorbs pressure, but his kill participation is 5th amongst all of his other top laners. And honestly, he does a fantastic job around creating space and engages for his teammates. When given the chance around the key pivotal fights, especially around Heralds, this is the guy. Now, will he be able to contest or even best some of his contemporaries in the top lane on the international stage? We have yet to see, but he's been a solid foundational tool in terms of team fighting options, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Let's meet Isurus' jungler, Grell. He's been part of the scene since the 2018 season, having gone on to Dash 9 Gaming, Rainbow 7, All Knights, and previously Estran before joining Isurus for the summer 2022 season. Yes, a recent addition, and my goodness, does he bring it to 11. Having one of the highest kill shares and gold shares amongst his contemporaries in the jungle role, his gold accumulation is incredible, and he is the main reason for the bloodthirsty early game nature of this team. But then you look to his KDA, and it unfortunately shows that he's not efficient with the aggressive nature that he presents. His lackadaisical approach towards always jumping in means that a lot of other teams have the opportunity to punish his very strong aggressive nature. Honestly, I do think that Grell will create a lot of good vibes for the international scene. He'll be able to really push the envelope against some of the other junglers who may have been used to a very slow-paced nature of the game. But that's only against some of the other junglers. Much of the many higher-seeded teams, some of the ones from China and Korea who are used to very aggressive natured, or even from the LEC from Europe, are going to be able to see his kind of aggression and punish it appropriately. Let's meet Isurus' mid laner, Seiya. Seiya has had a long history in the Latin American region, briefly being part of the academy team for Curse way back in 2013, for those who remember that. He's been mostly part of Lion Gaming before Latin America became a one unified region, and having joined in the 2019 season with Isurus and stayed since. Seiya is, quite frankly, an impressive mid laner in his own right. Against a sea of legends from this particular role, his contemporaries outshine him in many regards outside of his KDA. And while his KDA may not really supersede anything extraordinary, when comparing things, he's part of a team that doesn't have that same kind of inflation. There was a lot of competition. Seiya is a very strong team fighter, understands the space of the game, really understands the limits of his champions, and while he's not the strongest gold collector, he has the same kind of flexibility with his champion pool and the strongest understanding of team fighting that he brings a lot to the table for Isurus. Against others in the particular mid lane, he may be able to keep up, but some he will for sure struggle. And so it's just a matter of time of how does he adjust. And I would love to see how Seiya really responds to some big name players. Let's meet Isurus's bot laner, Gavotto. Gavotto here has been part of the scene since 2018, jumping from Estrada Esports to LDM Mexico to Team Ace before joining Isurus in the 2022 season. And his style fits right in with the kind of heavy fighting and skirmish, centered team. His particular champion pool and the way that he approaches the game really shines from there. But you start looking at how he compares to his contemporaries, and he unfortunately doesn't line up. It's a very scary and incredibly competitive role at this particular Worlds, and when you look at his KDA, CS per minute, gold per literally anything, he falls second to last, second to last, bottom 5. He is not keeping things up as is. And that would be one thing. It would just look at that particular anomaly and say, everything's fine, not going to be a problem. And then another, to really pay attention to the fact that he said there is 10 champions that he has under his belt, but a third of the games he's played is on Aphelios. That is an actual limitation to your drafting. Gavotto is skilled in being able to navigate team fights, but has a very strong leniency to one champion, and his stats do not reflect the ability to keep up against his peers in the bot lane. Let's meet Isurus's support player, Jelly. Jelly made his debut in 2018 season with a Freak of Freaks being the substitute and main support player on and off across until joining Isurus in the 2021 summer season and staying with them since. Jelly, in combination with Grell and really just the whole map movement as well with ADD, create this nice cohesive unit of roaming around the map, starting fights, and really playing around the skirmishes where necessary. Jelly will roam. He's incredibly versatile support player, having a fairly large champion pool to match with it, but also incredibly prepared to have a fight ready to start. He enables the behaviors for Isurus incredibly well, and honestly, there's not much more. He doesn't compare fairly strong against his other contemporaries outside of the fact that he roams a lot and that he's prepared to fight and is incredibly flexible with his champion pool. He is exactly the kind of stability and rock that Isurus needs to play around their really aggressive tendencies. At the end of the day, Isurus, being a Latin American team, historically speaking, haven't had a strong sense of accomplishment for the region. And I don't think this year is going to be any different. And by all means, this team has excited me since spring. They are incredibly good at learning and adapting as they move on from game to game to game to game. And it would be a shame to see them just completely get wiped. But it's hard for me to look at who they're about to face. They're in a team with DRX, Royal Never Give Up, Mad Lions, the Wildcats, the Buffaloes. They are the weakest team amongst this roster. I do think they will find ways early game to compete against these Titans, or these relative Titans, but I don't think they'll make it out of play-ins. Not unless they find that same kind of adaptation they've had since spring. And I'm hoping, just a glimmer of hope, just a little bit of it, that they'll find that and will be able to make an upset, really. If they were able to come out of groups, I don't think they'll make it further than that, really. But the test will literally be, can they make it out of groups? And if they can, that'll be so hype. I really like this team, but I don't think they'll make it through. But those are my thoughts, and based off the stats and having my reviews of every single playoff. What are your thoughts in the comments down below? I want to hear them. Do you think they have a chance, or are you a little bit more skeptical, or are you content with the idea that they're not going to make it out of play-ins this year? But that's okay. We'll just show them our best. Any of your thoughts I would love to hear in the comments down below. And a bunch of these little bars over here with any particular, what are they called? Playlists. You'll be able to find all of the other playoffs that I reviewed, my thoughts over the weeks when I was doing so, how they even qualified to Worlds, as well as all of the other teams that have qualified. All of it will be there. And if you like this content, like and subscribe. I'll be making more of these videos across Worlds. And with that, I hope you have all a great time. I'll see you next one.